My family has always treated affection like a bill that eventually lands on my desk, but I never expected the surcharge to be $55,000. When I refused to co-sign my brother's truck loan, the silence that followed wasn't just an absence of noise, it was a coordinated weapon. They didn't stop talking to me because they were busy. They went dark because I had finally stopped paying the admission fee to be their daughter. The label attached to me since I was 6 years old is reliable. In the Patterson family lexicon, reliable is not a compliment. It is a utility assignment. It means Sarah will handle the logistics. Sarah will remember the birthdays. Sarah will drive the extra 40 minutes to pick up the prescription. And most importantly, Sarah will pay for the mistake. I am 33 years old, and I work in risk assessment for a mid-sized lending firm in downtown Chicago. It is a stable, finance-adjacent career that requires me to look at numbers, identify instability, and predict where a structure might collapse. The irony is that I spend my days protecting a corporation from bad investments, yet I have spent my entire adult life acting as the overdraft protection for my own parents and brother. They say I always land on my feet. My father, Mark, likes to say it with a hearty slap on my back, usually right after I have bailed my younger brother. Kyle, out of another hole. Sarah always lands on her feet. It is supposed to sound like praise for my resilience. But lately, when I hear it, I do not hear admiration, I hear justification. They do not have to worry about where I land or how hard the impact is, because they know I will absorb the shock. I am the suspension system of this family, taking the bumps so their ride remains smooth. The invitation to dinner came on a Tuesday, which was my first warning. My family does not do spontaneous Tuesday dinners unless they are celebrating something or need something. My mother, Diane, left a voicemail that dripped with a sweetness I had not heard since I paid for their anniversary cruise 3 years ago. She mentioned she was making her lemon meringue pie. That was the second warning. Lemon meringue is labor-intensive. It requires separating eggs, cooking custard, and watching the oven like a hawk to ensure the peaks do not burn. She only makes it on my birthday, or when she feels guilty. Since my birthday was 6 months away, I knew the cost of the pie was going to be substantial. I drove out to the suburbs with a knot in my stomach that I tried to dissolve with logic. I told myself I was being cynical. I told myself that perhaps they just wanted to see me. I had just received pre-approval for a mortgage on a condo in the city. A place with exposed brick and a view of the river. A place that would be entirely mine. I wanted to share that news. I wanted to sit at their table and be a daughter, not a fixer. When I pulled into the driveway, Kyle's car was already there. It was a beat-up sedan he had bought off a friend 2 years ago. The bumper held on by duct tape and hope. Kyle is 30, 3 years my junior, but he carries himself with the perpetual, frantic optimism of a teenager who believes his big break is 5 minutes away. He has had a dozen big breaks. They usually end with a phone call to me asking for rent money. I walked into the house, and the smell of toasted sugar and lemon filled the hallway. It was aggressively homey. My mother met me at the door, wiping her hands on an apron, and pulled me into a hug that lasted 3 seconds too long. "So good to see you, Sarah," she said, pulling back to inspect me. "You look tired. Are you working too hard?" "I am just closing a big quarter." "Mom, it is fine." My father was in the living room, sitting in his recliner, but he stood up the moment I entered. He never stands up that fast. He shook my hand, then pulled me in for a side hug. Kyle was pacing near the television, his hands shoved in his pockets, wearing a clean button-down shirt that still had the creases from the packaging. "Hey, sis," Kyle said. He flashed a grin that was tight at the edges. We sat down to dinner almost immediately. Roast chicken, mashed potatoes with the skins left in, glazed carrots, my favorites. The conversation was a carefully curated tour of my greatest hits. They asked about my job. They asked if I was still seeing that nice accountant. Even though we broke up 4 months ago, they laughed too hard at my mild anecdotes about office politics. My father poured me a second glass of wine before I had finished the first. It felt like a performance. I felt like a donor at a fundraising gala. being softened up before the pledge card is placed on the table. Then, the plates were cleared. My mother brought out the pie. The meringue was perfect, golden brown swirls rising high above the yellow custard. She sliced a massive wedge for me and placed it down with a flourish. "We are just so proud of you, Sarah," my mother said, sitting back down. "You have really built a life for yourself. You are so independent." "Thank you," I said, taking a bite. The sugar rushed into my bloodstream, but the knot in my stomach tightened. What is going on? Kyle cleared his throat. He looked at Dad, then at Mom, then finally at me. "I got a job offer," Kyle said. "A real one, not like the other stuff." "That is great." "Kyle," I said, and I meant it. I always wanted him to succeed. "Who is it with?" "Ridgeway Site Services," he said, puffing his chest out slightly. "They do heavy contracting, excavation, hauling, site prep. The owner said he needs reliable guys who can haul heavy loads. It is big money. Sarah, we are talking 6 figures once I get the overtime going." "That sounds fantastic," I said. "The catch is, I need my own rig," Kyle said. He reached under the table and pulled out a glossy brochure, sliding it across the tablecloth toward me. It was for a heavy-duty pickup truck, the kind of vehicle that looks like it could tow a house. It was polished black, with chrome accents and tires that came up to my waist. I looked at the brochure, then at him. "You need to buy a truck for the job?" "Usually. Companies provide the fleet." "Do they not?" "Not for independent contractors," my father interrupted, leaning forward. "This is how you make the real money. Sarah, you bring the equipment. You get the higher rate. It is an investment." I looked down at the brochure again. I flipped it over. Someone had scribbled numbers in the margin in blue ink. $55,000. I read aloud. The room went silent. The number hung in the air, heavy and dense. "It is a tool," Kyle said quickly. "It is not a toy. I need the towing capacity for the trailers. And this one has the tow package. The extended cab so I can sleep in it if I am on a long haul. It is essential. $55,000. "Kyle," I repeated, keeping my voice level, "that is more than you made in the last 2 years combined." "That is why I need the truck," he said, his voice rising. "To change that. To finally get ahead." I looked at my parents. They were watching me with that expectant, hungry look. "We are helping him with the insurance," my mother said softly. "And we gave him what we could for the down payment. But the bank, they are being difficult," Kyle said. "Because I do not have a long credit history. They want a cosigner, just to secure the loan." I put my fork down. The lemon pie suddenly tasted like metal. "You want me to cosign?" I said. It was not a question. "Just to help with the interest rate," my father said, waving his hand as if the interest rate was a minor fly he was shooing away. "With your credit score, he could get the prime rate. Without it, the payments are too high. It is just a formality." "Sarah, Kyle is going to make the payments." I looked at Kyle. "Can I see the loan estimate?" He hesitated, then reached into a manila folder he had placed near his feet. He handed me a stack of papers. The logo at the top was not a major bank. It was Irongate Auto Finance. I knew the name. They were a regional lender known for approving high-risk borrowers at predatory rates. I put on my reading glasses, the ones I used for scanning risk reports at work, and I began to read. The first thing I noticed was the income line. It listed Kyle's income as $4,500 a month. "Kyle," I said, looking up, "you are currently working part-time at the warehouse. You do not make $4,500 a month. That is the projected income from the new job," he said defensively. "The guy at the dealership said it was fine to put that down. That is fraud." I said, "It is projected," my father insisted. "Do not be so technical." "Sarah." I went back to the papers. I scanned the itemized breakdown. The base price of the truck was $52,000, but there were add-ons. A paint protection package for $800, a tire and wheel warranty for $1,200, and a massive extended warranty bundle priced at $3,500. "You do not need an extended warranty on a brand new truck," I said. "And this interest rate?" even with the buy down. They are quoting you 12%. If I co-sign, and they drop it to 8, you are still looking at a monthly payment of nearly $900, plus insurance, plus gas. This truck gets, 15 miles to the gallon? It is an investment. Kyle slammed his hand on the table, making the silverware jump. You always do this. You always pick everything apart until it sounds impossible. I am looking at the math. Kyle, the math says this loan is underwater before you drive off the lot. We did not ask for a lecture. Sarah, my mother said, her voice sharp and cold. The warmth of the greeting completely evaporated. We asked for your help. I took a deep breath. I thought about my condo. I thought about the pre-approval letter sitting on my desk at home. It was fragile. Any significant change to my debt-to-income ratio, any new liability appearing on my credit report, could torpedo the entire deal. I cannot do it. I said. The silence that followed was different from the silence before. It was not heavy. It was sharp. It felt like glass shattering. What do you mean? You cannot, my father asked. I mean, I cannot co-sign a $55,000 loan. Dad, I am closing on my condo next month. If this debt shows up on my credit report, I lose my mortgage. I lose the apartment. So wait until you close, Kyle said. We can wait a month. No, I said. Even if I wasn't buying the condo, I would not do this. This is a bad loan. Kyle, Irongate is a predatory lender. This truck is too expensive. Look, I can help you find a used truck. We can find something reliable for $20,000. I will help you look. I will even help you budget for the down payment. But I cannot put my name on this debt. You are acting superior. Kyle spat out. You think because you sit in an office all day you are better than me. You do not want me to succeed. You want me to stay the loser brother so you can keep being the golden child? That is not true, I said, keeping my voice calm. Though my hands were shaking in my lap, I am trying to protect you. If you miss a payment on this, they will repossess it instantly. Irongate does not play games. We would do it for you, my mother said. I looked at her. She was wearing her wounded face, the one where her eyes went wide and watery. We would sign anything for you. Sarah, she continued, family helps family. That is what we do. When you needed help with college, I paid for college with loans. Mom, I paid them off myself. We co-signed one of them, my father shouted. For 1 semester, I said, and I paid it off 2 years early. This is $55,000 for a truck he does not need for a job he has not officially started yet. He starts Monday, my father yelled. Then he can start with a used truck. I stood up. I could not sit at that table anymore. The smell of the lemon pie was making me nauseous. I am sorry. I really am. But the answer is no. I cannot risk my financial future on this. Kyle laughed. It was a harsh, ugly sound. Your financial future. Right. Because that is all you care about. Your money, your credit score. You do not care about us. You never have. I grabbed my purse. I walked to the door. My parents did not stand up. They did not follow me. They sat at the table, staring at the cooling pie, united in their disappointment. I love you guys, I said from the doorway. My voice trembled, betraying me. I want to help, but not like this. Just go, my mother said. She did not look at me. She was looking at Kyle, touching his arm, soothing him. Just go. Sarah, we are busy. I drove home in a daze. The city lights blurred into streaks of neon against the windshield. I replayed the conversation over and over, looking for the exit ramp I had missed, the magic words that would have made them understand without making them hate me. But I knew there were no magic words. The script was written long ago. I was the provider. If I refused to provide, I was the villain. I got home and poured a glass of water. Standing by the window looking out at the Chicago skyline, I felt a primal fear in my chest, a cold, hollow ache. It was the fear of the pack animal being driven away from the fire, even though I knew I was right. Even though the math was on my side, the emotional logic of my family was rewriting reality. I was being cast out. I went to bed. But I did not sleep. The next morning, the silence began. Usually, my mother texts me at 8:30 in the morning, a meme, a weather report, a question about what I'm doing for the weekend. My phone was black. I opened our family group chat. The last message was from me, 2 days ago. A photo of a sunrise over the lake. No one had reacted to it. I typed a message. Hey, I hope you guys are okay. I love you. I watched the screen. Delivered. I waited. 10 minutes. An hour, usually. The read receipts appear instantly. My mother has her read receipts on for everyone because she does not understand privacy settings. My father checks his phone constantly. Kyle lives on his device. No read receipts. They had not just ignored me. They had changed their settings. Or they had blocked me. I went to work. I sat in meetings. I analyzed risk portfolios for a commercial real estate development in Ohio. I nodded at my colleagues. But part of my brain was dedicated to the silence on my phone. It felt loud. It felt like a siren. At lunch, I called my father. It went to voicemail after 2 rings. Hi, this is Mark. Leave a message. Dad, it is Sarah. Please call me. I do not want us to fight. I called my mother. It rang 4 times, then went to voicemail. I called the house line. My father picked up. Hello? Dad? I said. We are busy. Sarah, he said. His voice was not angry. It was flat. It was the voice you use for a telemarketer. Dad, please. Click. I stared at the phone. The dial tone hummed in my ear. I tried to stay calm. I told myself this was a tantrum. They were punishing me. They wanted me to panic. They wanted me to come crawling back with my checkbook and my pen, begging to sign the papers just to be let back into the circle. I remembered being 10 years old. I had broken a vase in the living room. It was an accident. I had tripped. My mother had stopped speaking to me for 3 days. She cooked dinner. She did laundry, but she looked right through me. On the 4th day, I used my allowance to buy her a cheap plastic flower from the corner store. She accepted it, hugged me, and suddenly I existed again. The lesson was clear. Love is a transaction. You pay for your mistakes. You pay for your existence. I put the phone down on my desk. I would not crawl. Not this time. The stakes were too high. $55,000 was not a plastic flower. I focused on my work. I forced myself to verify income statements, to cross-reference tax returns. I built a wall of numbers around myself. At 4 o'clock, a notification popped up on my personal email. I assumed it was spam or a bill. I opened it. The subject line read, "Thank you for choosing Westbrook Motor Plaza." My heart stopped. Westbrook Motor Plaza was the dealership where Kyle had been looking at the truck. I opened the email. It was a generic, automated message, featuring a picture of happy people high-fiving in front of a shiny SUV. Dear Sarah, welcome to the Westbrook family. We are thrilled to be part of your journey. Thank you for supporting Kyle's purchase of a 2024 Titan HD. We know you will love the peace of mind that comes with our Platinum service plan. If you have any questions about your paperwork, please access your portal here. I stared at the screen. My hands went cold. I had never contacted Westbrook Motor Plaza. I had never given them my email address. I had never spoken to a salesperson. Thank you for supporting Kyle's purchase. My mind raced. Had he bought it? How? He didn't have the credit. He didn't have the income. And why was the email addressed to me? I hovered my mouse over the link to the portal. I did not click it. In my line of work, we are trained to spot phishing attempts. But this did not look like phishing. The sender address was legitimate. The logo was correct. A sick feeling curled in my gut, heavier than the lemon pie, colder than the silence. It wasn't just that they had used my email, it was the implication. You only get the welcome email when the deal is done, when the papers are signed. But I hadn't signed anything. I picked up my phone to call my brother. But I stopped. If I called, I was breaking the silence. I was giving them what they wanted. But if I didn't call, and something had happened... I looked at the email again. Platinum service plan. That was the $3,500 warranty I had told him not to buy. I sat back in my ergonomic office chair, surrounded by the hum of a professional workplace. while a very unprofessional dread seeped into my bones. My family had gone silent, but my inbox was talking, and it was telling me that my refusal might not have mattered at all. The drive to Briar Glen took 45 minutes, a stretch of highway that unwound through the flat, gray outskirts of the city into the manicured, faux rustic aesthetic of the suburbs. I gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white, rehearsing lines of neutral conversation in my head. I would be pleasant. I would be calm. I would not bring up the truck, the loan, or the silence. I was going to my Aunt Linda's 60th birthday party, and I was determined to prove that I was still a Patterson, still a daughter, still a niece. But when I walked into the rented hall, a low-ceilinged room with wood paneling and the smell of stale coffee and chafing fuel, I realized the verdict had already been handed down in absentia. The room was full of family, aunts, uncles, cousins, family friends who had known me since I was in braces. The hum of conversation was loud, a comfortable drone of laughter and catching up. But as I stepped through the double doors, the noise didn't stop. It just shifted. Heads turned, eyes met mine, and then quickly darted away. My mother was standing near the buffet table, arranging a stack of napkins. She saw me. I saw her see me. And then she turned her back, engaging my cousin in an animated conversation about centerpieces. I walked to the seating chart near the entrance. It was a poster board decorated with glitter and ribbon. I scanned the head table, where the immediate family usually sat. My parents were there. Kyle was there. Even my cousin Mike, who had only been out of rehab for 3 months, was at the main table. I found my name at table 9. That table was in the back corner, next to the swinging kitchen doors and the emergency exit. It was the table for the outliers, the distant second cousins. The neighbors nobody really knew, and the elderly great-aunt who slept through most events. It was a geographical demotion. It was a physical manifestation of my new status, barely tolerated. I took my seat. The chair was cold metal. "Hello, Great-Aunt Marge?" I said. She blinked at me. "Who are you?" "I am Sarah, Diane's daughter." "Oh," she said, losing interest immediately. "You are the one with the job." Yes, I thought, I am the one with the job. I sat there for 20 minutes, nursing a glass of lukewarm iced tea. No one came over to say hello. My father walked past once on his way to the bar, and when I caught his eye, he gave me a tight, pained nod, the kind you give to a stranger on the subway, before hurrying away. Then, the doors at the far end of the hall swung open. The room went quiet, then erupted into cheers. It wasn't the birthday girl, it was Kyle. He didn't just walk in, he made an entrance. He was wearing a new leather jacket that squeaked when he moved. He was beaming, his face flushed with triumph, and he was twirling a set of keys on his finger, a heavy fob catching the light. "Sorry I'm late," Kyle announced, his voice booming. "Had to park the beast. She takes up 2 spaces." A few of the uncles laughed. My father clapped him on the shoulder, a look of unadulterated pride on his face. "Let us see it," Uncle Steve shouted. "Later, later," Kyle laughed. He walked toward the head table, but he stopped in the center of the room, scanning the crowd until his eyes landed on me in the back corner. His grin sharpened. He walked over. Not all the way, but close enough that his voice carried. "Glad you could make it. Sarah," he said, "we were not sure you would come down from your ivory tower. I am here for Aunt Linda," I said, keeping my voice steady. Kyle turned to the room. "Performing for his audience. Sarah worries too much," he announced to everyone and no one. "She did not think I could handle the new rig. She thinks she is the only one who understands money. But you know what? Family figures it out. Family finds a way." He tossed the keys into the air and caught them with a snap. "Sarah just does not believe in family," he joked. It was delivered as a punchline, but it landed like a stone. People laughed. It was that uncomfortable. Chortling laughter that signals compliance. They didn't necessarily agree, but they knew the narrative. Kyle was the underdog hero. I was the cold, corporate obstacle. By laughing, they were voting. My mother walked up to him and hugged him, whispering something in his ear. He nodded and sat down at the head table. I felt the blood burning in my cheeks. I wanted to leave. I wanted to stand up and scream that I was the one who had paid for the deposit on this very hall 3 years ago for their anniversary. I wanted to scream that the leather jacket he was wearing was likely bought on credit, but I stayed. Leaving would prove them right. Halfway through the dinner, rubbery chicken and overcooked green beans, I went to the restroom to escape the atmosphere. As I was washing my hands, the door opened and my Aunt Carol walked in. Carol has always been the family gossip, a woman who collects secrets like trading cards. She saw me and hesitated, then came to the sink next to me. "Rough night." "Sarah?" she asked, checking her lipstick in the mirror. "I have had better," I said. "You know," she said, leaning in, lowered voice, conspiratorial, "you really should have just signed the paper, honey. It would have saved everyone a lot of trouble. I could not afford to." "Aunt Carol, it was $55,000. Well, it worked out anyway," she said, though I do not know why Diane and Mark had to use the roof money. I froze, my hands dripping wet over the sink. "The what?" "The money for the roof," Carol said, casually blotting her lips. "You know, they had that savings set aside because the shingles are curling. Mark told Steve they used that cash for the down payment, said they would just patch the leaks for another year. Seems risky, if you ask me. But they really wanted the boy to have that truck." She snapped her purse shut. "Anyway, try to smile. Honey, you look like a funeral." She left. I stood there, staring at my reflection, the roof money. My parents had been saving for 3 years to replace the roof on their house, a necessary repair they had complained about constantly. They had drained their emergency fund, actual, critical infrastructure money, to put a down payment on a luxury truck for a job Kyle had not even started. It wasn't just irresponsibility anymore, it was a delusion. They were cannibalizing their own safety to feed his ego, and they had cast me out because I refused to hold the fork. I left the party 10 minutes later. I did not say goodbye. The silence from my family continued for a week. I went to work. I went to the gym. I looked at paint swatches for the condo I was closing on in 20 days. I tried to convince myself that the worst was over. Kyle had the truck. My parents had drained their savings. It was a disaster. But it was their disaster. I was safe on the shore, watching the ship go down. Then the phone rang. It was Tuesday morning. I was at my desk, reviewing a portfolio. The caller ID said Jason, mortgage broker. I picked up, expecting a routine update about closing costs. "Hey, Jason, do we have the clear to close?" There was a pause, the kind of pause that makes the hair on your arms stand up. "Sarah, do you have a minute?" Jason asked. His voice was different, professional, but guarded. "Sure. What is wrong?" "I just got an alert from underwriting," he said. "We do a final soft pull on your credit right before closing. Just to make sure nothing has changed. Standard procedure." And there are 2 things flagging," Jason said. "First, there is a new soft inquiry from a lender called Irongate Auto Finance dated 4 days ago. And second, your credit file is showing a recently updated contact address." I stopped breathing. The office sounds. Keyboards clacking. Phones ringing. Faded into a dull roar. "What address?" I asked. "It is a P.O. box in Briar Glen," he said. "P.O. Box 442. And the phone number associated with the file has been updated to a number ending in 7790. 7790. That was my parents' landline. "Sarah?" Jason asked. "Did you move? Did you apply for a car loan?" "No," I said. My voice sounded tinny and far away. "No. Jason, I did not move. I did not apply for a car loan. I refused to co-sign a loan with Irongate last week." "Okay," Jason said slowly. "Listen to me. You need to lock this down. If there is a hard inquiry or a new trade line opened, we lose the rate lock. If your debt-to-income ratio changes, we might lose the loan entirely. You need to call the bureaus. Now." I hung up. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely type. I logged into Equifax first. I had to reset my password because I was panicked and kept typing it wrong. When the dashboard finally loaded, I saw it. Under personal information, my current address was listed as P.O. Box 442, Briar Glen, Illinois. Under inquiries, there it was, Iron Gate Auto Finance. Inquiry date, October 14th. But there was no new loan listed. Not yet. I went to Experian. Same thing. I went to TransUnion, and there, buried in the alert section, was a notification. Loan application abandoned. Incomplete. I clicked on the details. It was an application for a $55,000 auto loan. Co-applicant, Sarah Patterson. Primary applicant, Kyle Patterson. The application had been submitted online at 11:30 at night on the Sunday of the party. I scrolled down to the metadata. Source, mobile web. Device, iPhone 13 Pro. I use an Android. My father uses a flip phone. Kyle has an iPhone 13 Pro. I felt a wave of nausea so violent I had to put my head between my knees. It wasn't just that they had asked. It wasn't just that they had pressured me. They had tried to do it without me. They had taken my name, my social security number, which they had because they were my parents, because they had my old tax returns in a box in the attic, and they had tried to sign me up for $55,000 of debt while I was sleeping. The only reason it hadn't gone through, the only reason it said abandoned, was likely because the system had asked for a verification code sent to my phone, or an email confirmation I never saw, or perhaps they just got scared. I did not call my parents. I did not call Kyle. I printed every screen. I saved every PDF. Then I searched for a lawyer. Mercer Hale Legal Clinic was not a high-rise firm with glass walls and espresso machines. It was located in a converted brick row house in a neighborhood that was gentrifying but not quite there yet. The waiting room smelled of old paper and peppermint tea. Dana Mercer was younger than I expected, maybe 40, with sharp eyes behind tortoiseshell glasses and a messy bun held together by a pencil. Her office was cluttered with stacks of files, but when I laid my paperwork out on her desk, she focused on it with laser intensity. She read without speaking for 5 minutes. She looked at the printout from the credit bureau. She looked at the email from Westbrook Motor Plaza I had received in Part 1. She looked at the screenshot of the address change. She took off her glasses and rubbed the bridge of her nose. "This is textbook," she said. Her voice was dry, matter of fact. "Textbook identity theft?" I asked. "Textbook familial fraud?" She corrected. "It is a specific flavor. It is messier. It is harder to prosecute, and it is incredibly common." She tapped the paper with the abandoned application. "This here? This is what we call synthetic authorization. They did not just try to pretend to be you. They tried to mix your real data, your social, your name, with their contact info, the P.O. box, the landline. They wanted the bank to ping them for verification. Not you. They wanted to intercept the alerts, but it says abandoned." I said, "So they failed." "They failed on this attempt," Dana said. "But look at the date of the inquiry from Iron Gate. It is a soft pull. That means they were shopping your credit. And here?" She pointed to the email from Westbrook Motor Plaza. "You got this email thanking you for the purchase. That implies a deal was closed. If the online application was abandoned, how did the deal close?" "I do not know." I said, "My guess?" Dana leaned back. "They used the online application to see if you would qualify, when it stalled, or when they realized they could not bypass the two-factor authentication on the web portal. They took the information they had harvested and went into the dealership, or they found a workaround." "A workaround?" "A sloppy finance manager." Dana said, "Someone who wants to move a unit, someone who accepts a scanned signature instead of a wet one, someone who takes a photocopy of a driver's license that your brother just happened to have on his phone." I felt cold. My parents had copies of my license, from when I lost my wallet 2 years ago and they helped me get a replacement. "What do I do?" I asked. Dana looked at me. The compassionate look she gave me was worse than the dry explanation. "You have 2 fights. Sarah, the first is financial. You need to lock everything down. Fraud alerts, freezes. You need to file a police report to get the extended fraud victim status." "A police report?" I whispered. "On my family?" "If you do not, The banks will not take you seriously, Dana said. They will say it is a civil matter between relatives. A police report is the only thing that proves you are a victim and not a co-conspirator who changed her mind. And the second fight? The second fight is the mortgage, she said. You need to write a letter of explanation to your underwriter immediately. You need to tell them you are a victim of identity theft. You do not have to name your brother yet if you are not ready, but you have to declare the fraud. If that truck loan pops up on your report before you close, and you haven't declared it as fraud, your debt-to-income ratio explodes. You lose the condo. I stared at the wall. I saw my condo. I saw the empty rooms I was planning to fill. And I hesitated. If I file the report? What happens to Kyle? If he signed your name? That is forgery. That is a felony. If he used your social? Identity theft. Also a felony. The room went silent. I left her office with a to-do list that felt like an indictment. I sat in my car outside the legal clinic for a long time. The police station was 3 blocks away. I looked at the building. I imagined walking in. I imagined the officer asking for the suspect's name. I imagined saying, Kyle Patterson. I couldn't do it. Not yet. I needed to be sure. I needed them to admit it. Or at least, I needed to give them one chance to fix it before I dropped a nuclear bomb on their lives. I drove to my parents' house. It was 6 o'clock. They would be eating dinner. When I pulled up, the new truck was not there. Just my parents' car. I walked to the door. I did not knock. I still had a key. I walked into the kitchen. They were sitting at the table. Meatloaf. Green beans. The silence that fell when I entered was heavy. Sarah? My mother said. She looked surprised, but not happy. She looked wary. We need to talk. I said. I did not sit down. We are eating. My father said, if you are here to start drama. I put the papers on the table, the credit report, the screenshot of the abandoned application. Someone tried to take out a loan in my name on Sunday night. I said, someone using a device that matches Kyle's phone. Someone who changed my address to a P.O. box in Briar Glen. My mother stopped chewing. She looked at the papers, then at me. I do not know what that is. She said, Mom, do not lie to me. The address is updated to your landline. Did you try to co-sign me without my knowing? Sarah, you are being ridiculous, she said. She stood up and walked to the sink to get a glass of water. Her hands were steady, too steady. I am not being ridiculous. I have a lawyer. This is fraud. My father slammed his fork down. A lawyer? You got a lawyer against your own family? I got a lawyer to protect myself. I shouted. Someone is messing with my credit. Dad, I am closing on my house in 2 weeks. If this destroys my loan, I will never forgive you. You are imagining things, my mother said. Turning around, she leaned against the counter, crossing her arms. This is just like you. Sarah, you are paranoid. You are paranoid because you do not trust us. You think everyone is out to get you. I am looking at the evidence. I pointed to the papers. It is a glitch, she snapped. Computers have glitches. Maybe the bank made a mistake. Maybe they kept your info on file from when we asked you to help. You are always looking for a reason to make us the villains. Did you sign my name? I asked. I looked her in the eye. No, she said. We did not sign your name. She said it with such conviction that for a second, I wavered. Maybe it was a glitch. Maybe the inquiry was just a mistake. Leave us alone. Sarah, my father said, go back to your city apartment. Let us eat in peace. If you want to sue us, go ahead. See how far that gets you. I looked at them. They were a wall of denial. They would never admit it. I took my papers. I walked out. 3 days passed. I was in a limbo of anxiety. I checked my credit every hour. Nothing new appeared. Maybe, I hoped, maybe Dana was wrong. Maybe the abandoned application was the end of it. Maybe they tried, failed, and gave up. Maybe Kyle got the truck some other way. A high-interest loan solely in his name. Or maybe my parents co-signed despite their credit issues. I tried to focus on packing. I taped up boxes. I labeled them kitchen, living room. On Saturday, the mail arrived. I grabbed the stack from my mailbox in the lobby of my current apartment building. utility bill, flyer for pizza, magazine, and a thin envelope from the Illinois Tollway Authority. It was addressed to Sarah Patterson, care of 114 Maple Street. My current address. My stomach dropped. I opened it. Notice of toll violation. Vehicle, 2024. Titan HD. Black. Plate. Redacted. And date, October 18th. Location, I-294 southbound. Amount due, $1.50 plus $20 penalty. There was a photo. It was grainy, taken by a high-speed camera, but it was clear enough. The truck was massive, taking up the whole frame, and in the driver's seat, wearing sunglasses and laughing, was Kyle. The notice was addressed to me. Not Kyle, me. The toll authority sends violations to the registered owner of the vehicle. If the violation came to me, it meant the truck was registered to me. The world tilted. They hadn't just used me as a cosigner. I looked at the date. October 18th. That was the day after the party. I looked at the name again. Sarah Patterson. They had put the truck in my name. Entirely? Or as the primary borrower? It didn't matter. My name was on the title. My name was on the registration. That was why the toll violation came here. Because my driver's license, the one my parents had a copy of, still had my current address on it, even if they had changed the credit file address to the P.O. box. The DMV database and the credit bureau database were different. They had missed a spot. I held the paper. It shook in my hand. This was $55,000 of debt. This was liability. If he hit someone, I was sued. If he stopped paying, I was bankrupt. My mother's voice echoed in my head. You are paranoid. You are imagining things. I wasn't imagining the photo of my brother driving a stolen future. I walked to my desk. I sat down. I did not scream. I did not cry. I opened a new physical folder. I labeled it Evidence. I put the toll violation inside. I put the credit report inside. I put the email from Westbrook Motor Plaza inside. I put the abandoned application screenshot inside. I took a deep breath. They thought I would fold. They thought that if they just did it, I would accept it because family helps family. They thought that once the ink was dry, I would be too afraid of the fallout to undo it. They were right about the fear. I was terrified. But they were wrong about the outcome. I picked up my phone and took a picture of the toll violation. I uploaded it to a secure cloud drive. Then I called Dana Mercer. I have the smoking gun. I said, bring it in. She answered. I hung up. I looked at the picture of Kyle in the truck. He looked so happy. He looked like a man who had gotten away with it. I closed the folder. The silence was over. Now, the documentation began. Institutions do not panic. That was the first lesson Dana Mercer taught me while I was losing sleep, checking my credit score 5 times a day, and flinching every time my phone vibrated. The machinery of the financial world was grinding forward at a pace that could only be described as glacial. We had sent the letters. Dana had drafted formal requests to Irongate Auto Finance and Westbrook Motor Plaza, citing the Fair Credit Reporting Act and demanding the original credit application, the wet ink signature contract, and the identification documents used to secure the loan. I expected an immediate response. A flurry of apologies, a swift correction. Instead, we got silence. Dana explained that silence from a bank is not an admission of guilt. It is a procedural delay. They have 30 days to investigate. They use every hour of those 30 days. You will find, Dana told me during one of our brief strategy calls, that banks often reveal more through routine paperwork than they do when you accuse them of fraud. If we scream fraud, they clam up. If we ask for verification of debt, they send us the whole file because they think they are proving you owe them money. We let them think they are right, until we have the proof that they are wrong. So I waited. My life became a split screen. On one side, I was Sarah the professional, closing the deal on my condo, smiling in Zoom meetings, and discussing risk mitigation strategies for commercial real estate. On the other side, I was Sarah the ghost, haunting the periphery of my own family, collecting evidence of their betrayal. I had not spoken to my parents in 3 weeks. The silence had settled into a hard, cold shape, like concrete setting in a mold. Then, on a Tuesday afternoon, my phone rang. It was my father. I stared at the screen. My heart did that traitorous little leap it always does. The biological reflex that hopes, despite everything, that this time will be different, that this time he is calling to apologize, that he is calling to say, "Sarah, we made a mistake. We love you. Let us fix this." I picked up. "Hello? Sarah?" His voice boomed through the speaker, jovial and bright, as if the last month had never happened, as if he hadn't told me he was too busy to speak to me, as if I hadn't received a toll violation for a truck I didn't own. "Dad?" I said, guarding my tone. "How is my girl? Look, I know we have both been busy, work has been a bear, and your mother has been dealing with her garden club drama. But we miss you. We hate this silence. It is not us." Sarah. I gripped the edge of my desk. It is not us, as if the silence was a weather event that had happened to us. Rather than a punishment they had inflicted, "I am still here. Dad," I said, I know. Listen, I want to take you to lunch. Just you and me. No Kyle, no Mom, just father and daughter. Let us break bread. Let us move on. We need to get back to normal." Normal. The word tasted like ash. Normal meant me paying. Normal meant me fixing. But I needed to know what they were doing. I needed to know if the abandoned application was truly abandoned, or if the toll violation was the tip of an iceberg I couldn't see yet. "Okay," I said. "When? Tomorrow? Let us go to that Italian place near your office, the one with the calamari you like. My treat. His treat." The irony was sharp enough to cut. I met him the next day at 12:30. He was sitting in a booth near the window, wearing his good blazer. He stood up when I approached, hugging me tight. He smelled like Old Spice and peppermint. For a second, I let myself lean into it. He was my dad. I remembered him teaching me to ride a bike. I remembered him carrying me on his shoulders at the zoo. But then I felt the tension in his frame. He was vibrating with a nervous energy that didn't match his smile. We ordered. He kept the conversation light, almost manic. He asked about the condo closing. He asked about the weather. He told a long, winding story about a neighbor who had painted their fence the wrong color. I watched him. I watched his hands. He kept adjusting his silverware, smoothing the napkin on his lap. He wasn't looking me in the eye for longer than 2 seconds. "So," he said, finally, after the waiter had cleared the appetizers, "I am glad we are doing this. Family unity. Sarah, it is the most important thing. We cannot let money come between us. It is just paper. Relationships are blood." I took a sip of water. "Dad, money is not just paper when it destroys my credit. Did you guys figure out the truck situation?" "I got a toll violation in the mail." He waved his hand dismissively, a gesture I knew well. "Oh, that was a clerical error. Kyle put the wrong address down when he registered the plates. We sorted it out. Do not worry about it." "He put the wrong address?" I asked. "Or he put my name?" "Sarah, please," he said, his smile tightening. "We are moving on. We are fixing everything. Honestly, once the refinance clears next week, we will have plenty of liquidity. We are going to pay off the truck loan entirely in a few months. We just needed a bridge." I froze. "The refinance?" I asked, keeping my voice level. He blinked, realizing he had slipped. He reached for his water glass quickly. "Yeah, just, moving some things around, taking advantage of the equity in the house. Interest rates are, well, they are what they are. But Briarcrest gave us a decent package." "Briarcrest?" I asked. "A lender," he said, looking away. "Look, the point is, we are going to be flush. We can help you with furniture for the new condo. We want to buy you a nice sofa, a housewarming gift." He was bribing me. With money he didn't have. I smiled. "A tight, thin thing. That sounds nice. Dad, we finished the meal." He paid with a credit card that took 3 tries to go through. He laughed it off, blaming the chip reader. But I saw the sweat bead on his upper lip. I walked back to my office. But I did not go inside. I went to my car. I opened my laptop and connected to the hotspot on my phone. My father had mentioned a refinance. He had mentioned Briarcrest lending, and he had said, once it clears, that meant it was in process, or just recorded. I went to the County Recorder of Deeds website. It is a public database. Anyone can search it. Most people just don't know how, or they don't think to look. I typed in my parents' names, Mark Patterson, Diane Patterson. The search results populated. There was the original mortgage from 20 years ago. There was a release from a home equity line of credit 5 years ago. And there, dated 10 days ago, was a new recording. Deed of trust. Grantor. Mark Patterson. Diane Patterson. Grantee. Briarcrest. Lending Group. Amount. $320,000. I clicked on the document image. It cost me $5 to download the PDF. I entered my credit card information with shaking fingers. The document opened. I scrolled through the legalese. It was a cash-out refinance. They were stripping almost all the equity out of their home, the house I grew up in, the house they claimed they wanted to leave to me and Kyle one day. But it was the third page that made the breath catch in my throat. It was a standard affidavit of occupancy and a debt consolidation rider. It listed the debts being paid off by the loan proceeds. 1. Chase credit card, $12,000. 2. Citibank personal loan, $18,000. 3. Speedy Cash. Loan, $5,000. 4. Judgment lien. State of Illinois. Kyle Patterson. $7,000. I stared at the screen. They weren't just refinancing their house to buy a truck. They were refinancing to pay off a judgment lien against Kyle. I vaguely remembered Kyle getting sued a few years ago over a broken lease and some damage to an apartment. But he had sworn he handled it. He hadn't handled it. He had ignored it. And now, my parents were eating their own retirement to clean up his mess. But that wasn't the worst part. I scrolled to the signature page. There was my father's signature. Small, jagged. There was my mother's signature. Loopy, round. And below them, there was a witness signature line. Witness, Sarah Patterson. And there, in blue ink, was my name. It looked like my signature. It had the distinct flair on the S that I have used since high school. It had the sharp cross on the T. But the spacing was wrong. The letters were too crowded. It looked like someone had practiced my signature 100 times on a notepad and then tried to recreate it from memory. I had not been in Briar Glen 10 days ago. I had been in Chicago. At a dental appointment. I had the receipt. They had forged my signature as a witness. Why? I read the fine print under the witness line. Witness attests that they have no financial interest in the transaction and have verified the identity of the signers. It was a small thing. A witness signature on a mortgage document is often a formality, but to the bank, it added a layer of legitimacy. It placed me in the room. It made me a participant. If this loan went bad, and looking at the list of debts, it was almost certainly going to go bad, and the bank investigated. They would see my name. They would see that Sarah Patterson, the finance professional, had stood there and watched her parents sign away their future. I felt a wave of nausea. My father's slip at lunch hadn't been an accident. He was subconsciously testing the waters. He wanted to see if I knew. He wanted to see if I was suspicious. And when I played dumb, he felt safe. He thought he had gotten away with it. I closed the laptop. My hands were cold. This was the pattern. I saw it now, clear as day. When I was 22, Kyle needed a car. They asked me to co-sign. I said no. A week later, they said they found a better rate and didn't need me. I found out years later they had taken a high-interest payday loan to cover the down payment when Kyle needed bail money 3 years ago. They told me they used savings. I found out later they had stopped paying their property taxes for a year to scrape the cash together. Whenever the family needs money, the story is temporary. It is just a bridge. It is just until the job starts. It is just until the settlement comes through. But the paperwork is permanent. The liens stay. The inquiries stay. The compound interest stays. And now, they had run out of their own credit. They had run out of home equity. So they were harvesting mine. I drove home. I needed to talk to Dana, but before I could call her, I checked my mail. I had installed a locking mailbox at my apartment a year ago, more out of habit than paranoia. Now, I was grateful for it. There was a white envelope, standard business size, return address, Identity Shield Pro. I frowned. I didn't use Identity Shield. I used a different service that I paid for myself. I opened the envelope. Welcome. Sarah, thank you for enrolling in Identity Shield Pro. Your account is now active. We are monitoring your credit file for any suspicious activity. To access your dashboard, please use the email address on file, markpatterson1960gmail.com. I read it twice. My parents had signed me up for a credit monitoring service. They had used their own credit card to pay for it, and they had linked it to my father's email address. Why would they do that? If they were stealing my identity, why would they pay to monitor it? Then it hit me. It was devious. It was brilliant. If they controlled the monitoring service, they got the alerts. If Irongate Auto Finance did a hard pull, Identity Shield would send an email to Mark, Patterson1960gmail.com. My father would see it. He would delete it. I would never know. If the toll violation hit my credit, Dad deletes the alert. If the new loan appeared, Dad deletes the alert. They weren't just stealing my credit. They were building a containment field around me. They wanted to make sure that I remained blind and deaf to the damage they were doing until it was too late to stop it. It was an act of aggressive, premeditated suppression. I walked into my apartment and threw my keys on the counter. The rage that filled me was different than before. It wasn't hot. It was cold. It was clarifying. I wasn't a daughter anymore. I was a host organism. And they were the parasite. I needed to confront Kyle. My parents were the architects. I knew that. My father was the desperate schemer. My mother was the enabler. But Kyle? Kyle was the beneficiary. He was the one driving the $55,000 truck. He was the one whose judgment lien had been wiped clean. And I knew Kyle. He was weak. He crumbled under pressure. My parents could lie to my face for years, conditioned by a lifetime of protecting the family. But Kyle didn't have the stamina for a long con. I knew where he would be. It was Wednesday. Wednesday night was his bowling league. He didn't have a job yet, despite the start date for the construction gig, but he never missed bowling. I drove to the lanes in Briar Glen. The parking lot was full, and there it was, the truck. It was parked across 2 spaces, just like he had joked about. It was a monstrosity. Gleaming black paint, chrome grille, tires that looked like they belonged on a tractor. It looked aggressive. It looked expensive. I parked my sedan 3 rows away. I waited. 2 hours later, Kyle came out. He was with 2 of his friends. They were laughing, high-fiving. Kyle was wearing his bowling shirt, looking carefree. He unlocked the truck with the remote. The lights flashed. The engine roared to life with a deep, guttural rumble. His friends got into their own cars. Kyle sat in the driver's seat, checking his phone. I walked up to the driver's side window and tapped on the glass. He jumped. He looked out, startled, and then his face fell. He rolled the window down 2 inches. "Sarah? What are you doing here? You stalking me?" "Unlock the door." "Kyle, I'm going home." "Sarah, I do not want a lecture. Unlock the door, or I call the police right now and report this truck as stolen." He hesitated. He looked at my face. I don't know what he saw there, but it must have scared him. He hit the unlock button. I opened the passenger door and climbed up. The cab was huge. It smelled like new leather and fast food. There were wrappers on the floor already. "Nice truck." I said, "Yeah, well, I need it for work." "The work you haven't started?" "I start Monday. For real this time. They had a delay with the permits." I looked at him. He wouldn't meet my eyes. "Kyle," I said softly, "I know about the refinance." He flinched. "I know about the lien they paid off for you. I know about the witness signature they forged on the deed. And I know that this truck is registered in my name." He gripped the steering wheel. His knuckles were white. "I didn't..." Look, Sarah, it is not a big deal. Not a big deal? I laughed. A dry, humorless sound. You are driving a liability that could bankrupt me. Did you sign my name? No, he said quickly. I didn't sign anything. Then who did? Mom and Dad. They handled the paperwork. They told me just to show up and pick up the keys. I do not understand all the forms. Sarah, you know that. I am not good with that stuff. He was doing it again. The weaponized incompetence. The I'm just a simple guy act that let him glide through life while everyone else cleaned up his debris. You knew, Kyle. You knew I said no. You knew I refused. They said you changed your mind, he pleaded. Dad said he talked to you and you agreed to help as long as we kept it quiet so your boyfriend didn't find out. I don't have a boyfriend, Kyle, and you know I would never agree to that. He looked down at his lap. Yeah, I guess I knew, but I needed the truck. Sarah, you have everything. You have the condo, the job, the money. I have nothing. I just needed a start. Why are you so greedy? Why can't you just let me have this? I stared at him. He truly believed it. He believed that my solvency was a resource he was entitled to. He believed that my boundaries were acts of aggression. Kyle, listen to me. This isn't about greed. This is about fraud. Dad and Mom forged my signature. They impersonated me. That is a crime, and you are driving the evidence. They are fixing it. He shouted, tears forming in his eyes. Dad said the refinance will cover it. They are going to pay off the loan in full in 2 months. Then the title transfers to me. Nobody gets hurt. Just wait 2 months. Sarah, please, do not ruin this for me. I looked at the dashboard. The odometer read 400 miles. I opened the glove box. Hey, what are you doing? I grabbed the registration. There it was. Sarah Patterson. I put it in my purse. That is mine. Kyle lunged for it. I pulled back. It is my name. Kyle. Legally, this is my paper. I opened the door and jumped down from the cab. Sarah, he yelled. Sarah, don't be a bitch. I slammed the door. I walked back to my car. I did not look back. The next morning, I sat in Dana Mercer's office. I looked worse than I felt. I hadn't slept, but my mind was razor sharp. I laid out the new evidence, the mortgage document with the forged witness signature, the welcome letter from Identity Shield, the registration I had taken from the truck. Dana looked at the registration card. She didn't look triumphant. She looked grim. Sarah, this is worse than we thought. She said, I know. I said, it is the mortgage. No, Dana said. I mean, the mortgage is bad. That is bank fraud. But this truck. She tapped the registration card. You are the registered owner, not a cosigner. The owner. That means you are liable for everything this vehicle does. She leaned forward. If Kyle drives drunk and hits a minivan, they sue you. If the truck malfunctions and causes a pileup, they sue you. If he parks it illegally and racks up $5,000 in tickets, the city garnishes your wages. But I didn't sign for it. I protested. It does not matter until a judge says you didn't. Dana said, right now, in the eyes of the state of Illinois and the Insurance Commission, that is your truck. And here's the kicker. If Irongate repossesses it, because payments are missed, they will auction it for $30,000, and they will come after you for the remaining $25,000 deficiency balance. She took off her glasses. And since your parents are underwater on this new refinance, which sounds like a predatory loan itself if Briarcrest is involved, they have no money to indemnify you. You are the only deep pocket in the room. The creditors will not waste time on your brother or your parents. They will come for the person with the condo and the 401k. I felt the blood drain from my face. What do I do? We have to go nuclear, Dana said. We cannot wait for the gentle inquiries anymore. We need to file the police report today. We need to file an affidavit of forgery with the Secretary of State to invalidate the title. And we need to send a cease and desist to your parents. I nodded. I felt a strange sense of mourning. I was grieving the death of the hope that this could be fixed quietly. But there is something else you need to do, Dana said. Something personal. What? You need to build a firewall, a complete separation of financial and digital church and state. Because if they paid for credit monitoring in your name, they have your social security number, your date of birth, your mother's maiden name. Obviously, they have the keys to your entire life. I spent the rest of the day building my fortress. I went to the post office and rented a new box, not in my neighborhood, in the town where I worked. 10 miles away, I went to the bank, a new bank, one my parents had never used, and opened a new checking account. I moved my emergency fund. I sat in a coffee shop for 4 hours and changed every password I owned: email, Netflix, retirement accounts, health insurance portal. I set up a password manager with two-factor authentication linked to an authenticator app. Not my phone number, because phone numbers can be spoofed or ported. I went to the credit bureaus and placed a security freeze. Not a fraud alert. A freeze. No one, not even me, could open credit in my name without a specific PIN that I wrote down on a piece of paper and locked in a fireproof box. Then, I did the hardest thing. I logged into my company's HR portal. I went to the Beneficiaries tab for 10 years. My life insurance and my 401k listed. Primary beneficiary, Mark and Diane Patterson, 50%. Secondary beneficiary, Kyle Patterson, 50%. I clicked edit. I deleted them. I didn't have a spouse. I didn't have kids. I typed in the name of a local animal shelter. It was a placeholder, but it was better than the alternative. I stared at the screen. Beneficiaries updated. It felt like cutting an artery. It was the final admission that if I died tomorrow, I did not trust them to mourn me. I only trusted them to spend me. I closed the laptop. I was safe. I was fortified. But the war was just starting. I drove home, exhausted. My phone buzzed. It was a text from my aunt, the one who had gossiped in the bathroom. "Sarah, why is your mother crying? She says you stole Kyle's registration? How could you be so petty? He needs that for work." I didn't reply. I walked into my apartment. It was quiet. It was mine. I took the registration card out of my purse and pinned it to the corkboard in my kitchen. It wasn't a car title anymore. It was a declaration of war. And I was done surrendering. The call that ended the stalemate did not come from my family. It came from a number with a seemingly benign area code, the kind used by call centers and customer service departments. I was sitting in my office, staring at a spreadsheet that I hadn't actually read in 10 minutes. My mind still replaying the confrontation with Kyle in the truck. I had spent the last 24 hours in a state of hypervigilance, waiting for the fallout from stealing the registration card. I expected my father to pound on my door. I expected my mother to call the police on me. I did not expect a claims adjuster. "This is Sarah Patterson?" the voice asked. It was a woman, professional, brisk, the voice of someone who spends her day calculating liability. "Yes, this is Sarah. This is Brenda from Hollowbrook Mutual Insurance. I am calling regarding the claim filed this morning on the 2024 Titan HD. We need to go over a few details regarding the accident at the storage facility before we can proceed with the liability determination." I felt the blood drain from my face, leaving my hands cold and numb. "Accident?" I asked. The word came out breathless. "Yes, the incident at Stows-a-Lot Storage in Briar Glen. We have the preliminary report from the driver, Kyle Patterson. But since you are listed as an additional insured on the policy binder, we need to verify your knowledge of the vehicle's usage." I closed my eyes. Additional insured. Kyle had told everyone the insurance was handled. He had sworn up and down that he had his own policy. But of course, a 24-year-old with a spotty driving record and a brand new $55,000 commercial truck would have been quoted a premium that cost more than his rent. So they had used me. Again, they had likely pulled my name from an old family policy bundle or simply written me in on the application to score a multi-driver discount or to meet the lender's collateral requirements. "I was not driving the vehicle," I said. My voice was steady, but my stomach was churning. "I was not present." "We know that," Brenda said. "But given the extent of the property damage, the facility owner is indicating they may pursue damages beyond the property liability limits of the policy. If the policy caps out, they will look to the policyholders for the difference. Beyond the limits? I asked. What did he hit? I cannot discuss the full extent until we have the adjusters on site. Brenda said, but the initial report states that the vehicle struck a structural support for the automated gate system, which caused a mechanical failure and subsequent damage to the adjoining units. It is significant. I hung up the phone. I didn't say goodbye. I just put the device down on my desk as if it were radioactive. Significant damage, litigation, liability limits, and my name was on the binder. 10 minutes later, my phone lit up again. It was my mother, then my father, then Kyle. The silence was over. The blockade was lifted. They weren't calling to apologize. They were calling because the house was on fire, and I was the only one who knew how to hold a hose. I ignored the first 3 calls. I needed to think. I needed to breathe. I opened my laptop and emailed Dana Mercer. Subject: emergency, accident, body. Kyle crashed the truck. Massive property damage. Insurance just called me. I am listed as additional insured. Family is calling. What do I do? Dana's reply came 2 minutes later. Do not admit fault. Do not agree to pay anything. Do not sign anything. Get the police report or the accident exchange form. And Sarah? This is where it gets ugly. Stay calm. I took a deep breath. I picked up the phone on the 4th ring. It was my mother. Sarah, thank God. Why are you not answering? We have been trying to reach you for 20 minutes. Her voice was high, pitched in that frantic register that usually sent me into immediate fixer mode. I was working. Mom, you need to come over. Now. Kyle has had a terrible accident. He is a mess. Sarah, he is shaking. Is he hurt? I asked. The sister in me still existed, buried under layers of scar tissue. No, he is fine physically, but the truck and that storage place. Sarah, the owner was screaming at him. He threatened to sue us. You need to come help us straighten this out. You know how to talk to these people. You understand the insurance language. I am not coming over to fix this. Mom. Sarah, please. She started to cry. Real tears. Panic tears. We do not know what to do. Mark is on the phone with the bank, but he is shouting, and I do not think he is helping. You are the only one who keeps a cool head. You owe us this. Sarah, we raised you to be capable. We raised you to be the strong one. Please, just come look at the paperwork. You owe us. The phrase hung in the air. I owed them for my competence. I owed them for the survival skills I had developed specifically to survive them. I will be there in 30 minutes, I said. I didn't go because I wanted to help. I went because I needed to see the damage. I needed to see exactly how deep the hole was before I buried my relationship with them forever. I drove to the house. The driveway was empty. The truck was gone, likely towed or impounded. I walked inside. The atmosphere was suffocating. It smelled of stress, stale coffee, sweat, and that distinct, metallic scent of adrenaline. Kyle was sitting at the kitchen table, his head in his hands. My father was pacing the living room, phone pressed to his ear, his face a mottled red. My mother was hovering over Kyle, rubbing his back. When I walked in, the energy in the room shifted. They turned to me like sunflowers turning toward a black sun. Sarah, my father said, lowering the phone, finally, you need to call Hollowbrook. You need to tell them that the storage facility had illegal bollard placement. I looked up the code. They need to have 36 inches of clearance. That gate was too narrow. It is their fault. I looked at Kyle. What happened? I asked. He looked up. His eyes were red-rimmed. I was backing out. He said, the mirrors on that thing are huge, but the blind spot is weird. I thought I had room. I hit the keypad stand. I panicked. I hit the gas instead of the brake. I went into the gate. Into the gate? I asked. I took the whole thing down. He whispered. And the motor assembly fell on a vintage Corvette in Unit 4. I closed my eyes. A vintage Corvette. Dad says it is their fault, Kyle said, looking at me with desperate hope. The sensors should have stopped the gate from closing on me. You hit the stand. Kyle, I said, the sensors do not stop you from hitting a stationary object. Whose side are you on? My father snapped. He hung up the phone and walked into the kitchen. We need a strategy. Sarah, not a lecture. Hollowbrook is saying there might be a coverage issue because the truck was being used for commercial purposes, but the policy is personal. You need to call them and explain that he was just moving some personal boxes. Was he? I asked. He was moving equipment for the job, Kyle said. Then it is commercial use. I said, if you lie to the insurance company, that is insurance fraud. On top of everything else, my mother slammed her hand on the counter. Stop using that word, she screamed. Fraud, fraud. Everything is a crime with you lately. We are a family in crisis. Sarah, we made a mistake with the policy type. Fine. We will pay the difference in the premium. Just get them to cover the accident. It does not work like that. Mom, you cannot buy fire insurance after the house has burned down. So what are we supposed to do? She asked, her voice trembling. Lose everything? If they sue us. If they come after the house. She looked at me. They all looked at me. And I realized, with a clarity that was both cold and liberating, that they had already cast the roles. Kyle was the victim of circumstance. My father was the outraged defender. My mother was the emotional casualty, and I was the checkbook. I was the one with the clean credit. I was the one with the condo equity. I was the one with the steady job. They assumed that because I was on the paperwork, however unwillingly, I would have to step in to save myself. And in doing so, I would save them. Sarah, my father said, his voice dropping to a reasonable, persuasive baritone. Look, we know you are upset about how the loan happened. We get it. We should have asked, but we are here now. The truck is in your name. The insurance has you listed. If this goes south, it hits you too. We are in the same boat. So pick up an oar and help us row. I looked at him. I looked at the man who had taught me to tie my shoes. The man who had walked me down the aisle at my sister's wedding. No, I didn't have a sister. I was the only daughter. The phantom memory of a functional family flickered and died. I am not in the boat. Dad, I said. What? I am not in the boat, I repeated. I stepped back, putting the kitchen island between us. I froze my credit 3 weeks ago. I filed a police report for identity theft this morning, and I have retained an attorney who is currently filing a fraud affidavit with the Secretary of State to invalidate that registration. The room went absolutely silent, the kind of silence that follows a gunshot. You did what? My father whispered. I have a lawyer. Dad. Her name is Dana Mercer. She specializes in consumer fraud. She has the emails from the dealership. She has the toll violation photo. She has the screenshots of the abandoned loan application you tried to push through on Sunday night. And she has the mortgage document from Briarcrest Lending with the witness signature that I did not sign. My father's face changed. It wasn't just anger anymore. It was fear. Pure, unadulterated fear. He knew. He knew that if a lawyer started pulling threads on the truck, they would find the refinance. And the refinance wasn't just a civil dispute. Forging a witness signature on a federally regulated mortgage document is a felony. It is bank fraud. You ungrateful. My father started. But the words choked him. You went to the police? My mother breathed. On your own family? You stole my identity. Mom! I shouted. My voice finally broke, the calm facade cracking. You took my name. You took my financial future. You put me $55,000 in debt for a truck I told you he could not afford. And now he has smashed it into a building. Did you think I was just going to sit there and let you drag me under? We did it for you, Kyle yelled. Standing up? For me? I laughed. It was a hysterical, sharp sound. How is any of this for me? Because if I succeed, I can take care of you, Kyle shouted. I wanted to make the money so I could be the one helping. I wanted to show you I am not a loser. By stealing from me? I asked. That is not help, Kyle. That is theft. Get out, my father said. His voice was low, shaking with rage. Dad, my mother touched his arm. Get out of my house. Sarah, you want to play lawyer? Fine. We will get our own lawyer, and we will tell them how you verbally agreed to everything, how you are changing your story now because you got scared of the accident. It is your word against ours, and there are 3 of us." I looked at them, the 3 of them, a united front of delusion. "It is not my word against yours." I said, "It is my passport stamps showing I was out of the country." "No, I wasn't out of the country. I was at the dentist." "It is my work log showing I was in a secure building when the loan was signed." "It is the IP address on the application that matches this house, not my apartment." I pulled a card out of my pocket. Dana's business card. I slid it across the counter. "Have your lawyer call her. Do not call me again." I walked out. My mother was sobbing as I closed the door. She wasn't crying for me. She was crying because the safety net had finally snapped. I drove to a park 3 miles away and sat in my car. I shook for 20 minutes. My hands rattled against the steering wheel. My teeth chattered. It was the adrenaline crash. My phone buzzed. I flinched. It was a text. Not from my parents. Not from Kyle. It was from my Aunt Carol. "Saw your car leaving. Diane called me in a state. She says you are suing them." I didn't reply. A second text came through. "Look, honey, I know I told you to just sign it before, but I think you should know something. I was in the kitchen with Diane at the birthday party, before you got there. She was on the phone with Mark." 3 dots appeared. I held my breath. She said, "Once Sarah's name is on it, the bank has to work with us. They won't foreclose on a house if the co-borrower has an 800 credit score. They will just restructure. We need her metrics." She wasn't talking about the truck, Sarah. She was talking about the house. I stared at the screen. The truck was a distraction. Or maybe just the appetizer. The real play was the house, the refinance. They knew the new loan with Briarcrest was shaky. They knew they couldn't afford the payments. They had forged my name as a witness, but maybe they had planned to forge me as a guarantor later? Or maybe they believed that simply linking my name to their financial ecosystem would create a halo effect that would protect them. We need her metrics. I wasn't a person. I was a credit score and address. The grief hit me then. It wasn't a sharp pain. It was a heavy, dull ache in the center of my chest. I had spent my whole life trying to be good enough to be loved. I thought that if I was responsible, if I was successful, if I was the fixer, they would finally see me. But they had seen me. They saw me perfectly. They saw me as a resource. They saw me as a tool. And you do not love a tool. You use it until it breaks, and then you complain that it wasn't sturdy enough. I wiped my face. I blocked Aunt Carol's number. I didn't want the gossip. I had the truth. The next morning, I sat in Dana's office. I looked different. I felt different. The fear was gone, replaced by a cold, administrative determination. Dana looked at the notes I had sent her. "So, the accident is confirmed," she said. "The liability is likely in the 6 figures if the structure was damaged. The insurance company is already flagging the commercial use issue. They are going to deny the claim. Sarah, I know." I said, "Which means the storage facility will sue the registered owner." "You? I know." Dana nodded. She pulled a file folder from her drawer. It was thick. "We are filing the dispute package today," she said. "It goes to Irongate, Hollowbrook Mutual, and the 3 credit bureaus. We are also sending a preservation letter to the dealership and the lender." "What is a preservation letter?" I asked. "It is a legal demand that they preserve all digital evidence," Dana explained. "Every login, every IP address, every keystroke log from the finance manager's computer. We are asking for the metadata of the electronic signature session." She opened the file and pointed to a diagram. "When you sign a document on a digital pad, like DocuSign or a dealership portal, it records more than just the image of the signature. It records the speed of the stroke, the pressure, the GPS location of the device. If Kyle signed it on an iPad at the dealership," Dana continued, "the GPS will show the dealership. If your parents signed it on their computer at home, the IP will trace to their router, and since you can prove you were at work, it proves I wasn't there." I said, "Exactly. The system has fingerprints. Sarah, you just have to ask for them correctly. Most people do not know to ask. They just argue about the signature looking wrong. We are going to argue that the digital footprint proves you were 10 miles away. She handed me a pen. I need you to sign the affidavits. This is the point of no return. Once we file these, the police investigation becomes active. The insurance fraud investigation becomes active. Your parents will be contacted by investigators. I looked at the pen. I thought about my mother making lemon meringue pie. I thought about my father teaching me to ride a bike. I thought about Kyle showing me his bowling trophy when he was 12. Then I thought about, we need her metrics. I signed the papers. The escalation was immediate. My parents didn't call me. They didn't text me. They launched a campaign. On Thursday, my cousin Mike, the one who had just gotten out of rehab, sent me a Facebook message. You think you are better than everyone? Mom says you are trying to put Aunt Di in jail. You are a snake. On Friday, my grandmother called. She is 82. She was crying. Sarah, why are you doing this? Your father says you are destroying the family. He says he might lose his job if this comes out. He says you are doing it out of spite because they helped Kyle and not you. Grandma, that is not true, I said gently. Just stop it. Sarah, she wept. Just pay the money. You have so much. Why can you not share? Family is all we have. I hung up. I unplugged my landline. Saturday was the worst. I went to the grocery store. I was in the produce aisle, picking out apples. I heard a voice. Well, if it isn't the prosecutor. I turned around. It was Diane, my mother. She looked haggard. Her eyes were swollen. Her hair unwashed. She was wearing sweatpants, which she never did in public. I turned back to the apples. I am not doing this here. Mom, you are ruining his life, she hissed, stepping closer. People turned to look. Kyle is suicidal. Sarah, he is sitting in his room in the dark. He says he has no future. If he hurts himself, that is on you. You bear that mark. I put the apple down. My hand was shaking. If he hurts himself, that is a tragedy, I said quietly. But I did not cause this. You did. You forged the papers. You lied to him. You told him it was handled. We were protecting him, she screamed. The store went silent. A manager started walking toward us. You were not protecting him, I said, my voice rising. You were crippling him. You taught him that he can do whatever he wants and someone else will pay for it. And now the bill is due. And you are mad that I will not pick it up. You are cold, she spat. You are a cold, heartless bitch. I do not know how I raised you. I looked at her. I really looked at her. I saw the fear behind the anger. She was terrified. She was watching her house of cards collapse. And she had no one left to blame but the wind. You didn't raise me. Mom, I said, I raised myself because you were too busy raising Kyle. I walked away. The manager stepped in front of her as she tried to follow me. I left my card in the aisle and walked out of the store. I sat in my car in the parking lot and cried for 10 minutes. I cried for the mother I wanted and for the mother I had. I cried because she was right about one thing. I was destroying the family. But what she didn't understand was that the family was already dead. It had died the moment they signed my name. I was just the coroner, finally filling out the death certificate. The following Monday, Dana called me. We got the logs, she said. From the dealership? Yes, and from the lender. Sarah, it is better than we thought. Better? The IP address for the signing session on the loan documents logs back to a residential Comcast account in Briar Glen, my parents' house. But here's the clincher, Dana said. The timestamp on the signature for the co-buyer is 3:45 p.m. on a Tuesday. I checked my calendar. I was in a mandatory compliance training seminar at work from 1 to 5 that day. I said, we have to swipe our badges to get in and out of the training room. Perfect, Dana said. We have the physical impossibility. You could not have been at the computer in Briar Glen. So we win? I asked. We win the dispute, Dana said. Iron Gate will have to release you from the loan. They will realize they accepted a fraudulent signature. They will probably go after the dealership for the deficiency. And the insurance? Hollowbrook will deny the claim based on fraud and commercial use. They will rescind the policy. So who pays for the storage unit? Kyle, Dana said, and your parents. Since you will be proven to be a victim of identity theft. Your name comes off the title. You are no longer the owner. The liability snaps back to the people who committed the fraud. And the criminal charges? Dana paused. That is up to the state's attorney now. We handed them the package, with this IP evidence. It is a slam dunk. Sarah, forgery, identity theft, wire fraud. I looked out the window of my office. The city looked gray and steel hard. What happens to them? I asked. Probation. Likely. Restitution. A permanent criminal record. Your father will lose his finance license if he has one. They will likely lose the house to the liens. I closed my eyes. Do you want to stop it? Dana asked. We can settle. We can ask for a civil judgment and drop the criminal complaint. I thought about the text from my aunt. We need her metrics. I thought about my mother in the grocery store. You are a cold, heartless bitch. I thought about the toll violation with Kyle laughing in the driver's seat. If I stop it? I asked. Will they ever stop? Dana didn't answer. She didn't have to. No, I said. Proceed. I hung up. I had built my boundaries. I had dug my moat. Now, I had to watch the bridge burn. But even as the relief washed over me, the knowledge that I wouldn't lose my condo, that I wouldn't be bankrupt, I felt the phantom weight of the limb I had just severed. I was free, but God. It was quiet. The forensic dissection of a lie is a slow, quiet process. It does not happen with shouting matches or dramatic reveals in a courtroom. It happens in a silence filled only with the hum of a laser printer and the rustle of paper. In Dana Mercer's office, the truth arrived in a large, padded envelope from the compliance department of Westbrook Motor Plaza. They had finally responded to the preservation letter, likely terrified by the words identity theft and fraudulent conveyance. Dana laid the document on the desk. It was a photocopy of a form titled Co-Buyer Consent and Non-Spousal Guarantee. There, at the bottom of the page, was my name, typed in a standard serif font, and next to it was my signature. I stared at it. It was a good forgery. At a glance, it looked exactly like the signature on my driver's license, which I knew my parents had a copy of. The capital S had the same wide, sweeping loop. The P in Patterson had the sharp, aggressive downstroke I had adopted in college. But as I leaned closer, the illusion fractured. It is shaky, I said. Dana handed me a magnifying glass. Look at the flow. I looked. When you sign your name, you do it in a burst of muscle memory. The ink flows smoothly because the hand does not hesitate. But here, under the magnification, I could see the hesitation. The lines were not fluid arcs. They were a series of microscopic, jagged adjustments. The ink pooled slightly at the top of the H, as if the writer had paused to check their reference image before completing the stroke. Also, Dana said, pointing to the spacing, look at the distance between the first and last name. I looked. There was a full inch of space. I never leave that much space, I said. I crowd the letters. Exactly, Dana said. Whoever signed this was looking at a license or a document where the names were printed separately, and they subconsciously mimicked the spacing of the printed text. Not your habitual hand. She flipped the page. But we do not need handwriting analysis to prove this, she said. We have something better. We have time. She pointed to the metadata stamp at the top of the digital capture log. Session ID 499201. Date October 14th. Time 2:15 p.m. October 14th. I said, that was a Tuesday. Where were you at 2:15 on Tuesday? October 14th? Dana asked. I pulled up my work calendar on my phone. Even though I already knew, I scrolled back. I was in the quarterly compliance town hall. I said, Dana nodded, and your building requires a badge scan to enter the auditorium? Yes, and to leave. And the auditorium is a dead zone for cell service, correct? Yes. We have to leave our phones in lockers outside because they discuss sensitive proprietary data. Dana smiled. It was a sharp, predatory smile. So, At the exact moment this signature was being created on a digital pad in Briar Glen or at the dealership. You were locked in a secure room in downtown Chicago, 20 miles away, with no phone and verified biometric entry logs. She sat back. You were not there. Sarah, it is physically impossible. This document is a ghost. She pulled out another sheet from the stack. This one was a printout of the internal notes from the dealership's CRM system. These are the notes salespeople type into the file to track the deal. They never expect the customer to see them. I read the entries. October 12th. Customer, Kyle. In with parents. Loves the Titan. Credit shaky. Parents suggest co-signer sister. Say she is high income/low debt. October 13th. Ran credit on sister. Score 785. Approved Tier 1. Need wet signature. October 14th. Father called. Said sister is stuck at work but gave verbal authorization to proceed. Parents will coordinate signature. Sending digital packet to home email. October 14th. Doc signed remote. Deal funded. I felt a cold anger settle in my chest. Parents will coordinate signature. They hadn't just forged it. They had engineered a scenario where the dealership felt comfortable looking the other way. They had used my busy job, the very career they resented, as the excuse for why I couldn't be there to catch them stealing from me. And the dealership had let them. They had violated the Patriot Act's Know Your Customer protocols because they wanted to move a $55,000 unit off the lot. This is the smoking gun, Dana said. The dealership knew you were not present. They accepted a remote signature on a high-value asset without video verification or a notary. Based solely on the word of a third party, that is negligence. What happens now? I asked. Now, Dana said, we wait for the other shoe to drop. Because if the deal was funded on the 14th, the first payment was due on the 14th of this month. That was 3 days ago. Kyle doesn't have the money. I said, the truck is wrecked. He is not working. Dana nodded. Which means the delinquency notices are already in the mail. And since they have already proven they are willing to redirect your mail, she didn't have to finish the sentence. The confirmation came 2 days later. Dana had set up a monitoring trap with Irongate Auto Finance. As my attorney, she had demanded copies of all correspondence sent to any address associated with my Social Security number. She forwarded me a PDF. It was a notice of late payment to Sarah Patterson, care of P.O. Box 442, Briar Glen. I.L. Dear Sarah, we have not received your payment of $894.32. Please remit immediately to avoid negative reporting to the credit bureaus. I looked at the address. P.O. Box 442. That was the box my parents had opened. The box they had hoped would catch the shrapnel before it hit me. But the shrapnel was flying everywhere now. I printed the notice. I added it to my file. Every piece of paper was another brick in the wall I was building between us. Then, my phone rang. It was my father. I let it go to voicemail. I listened to the message. Sarah, pick up the phone. We need to have a rational conversation. We have a solution. Call me. I didn't call. 2 hours later, an email arrived. Subject, a way forward, from Mark. Patterson1960gmail.com. I sat at my kitchen table, a cup of tea going cold in my hand, and opened it. Sarah, we are writing this because things have gotten out of hand. We know you are angry. We know you feel disrespected. But involving lawyers and the police is an escalation that will hurt everyone, including you. Do you really want to be the daughter who sued her parents? Do you want that on your conscience? We have spoken to a friend at the bank. Because of the accident, the insurance is stalling. But if we restructure the loan now, we can roll the repair costs into a new financing agreement. We can extend the term to lower the payments. Here's the compromise. You come home, you sign the restructuring paperwork, legally, this time, so there is no question. This will validate the original loan and stop the fraud investigation. In exchange, we will handle the monthly payments until the refinance on the house clears. We will forgive you for the stress you have caused the family over the last month, and we can all move on. This is your chance to fix this. Please be the bigger person. Dad, I read it 3 times. We will forgive you. I put the tablet down. I walked to the sink and gripped the porcelain edge until my knuckles turned white. They were offering to let me save them as a favor to me. They were asking me to retroactively consent to a felony, to bind myself legally to a wrecked truck and a massive debt, and in exchange, they would grant me the absolution of not being hated by them. It was breathtaking. It was a masterpiece of manipulation. They were not asking for mercy. They were negotiating a hostage release. And I was both the hostage and the negotiator. We see you as an asset. The thought came to me with the clarity of a bell ringing in a quiet room. They did not miss me. They missed my credit score. They did not want my company. They wanted my signature. I sank to the floor of my kitchen. I pulled my knees to my chest. I cried. I didn't cry because I was scared. I wasn't scared anymore. I cried because I was mourning. I was mourning the death of a fantasy I hadn't realized I was still clutching. The fantasy that if I was just good enough, if I was just successful enough, if I just saved them enough times, they would finally look at me with the same unconditional, irrational love they gave to Kyle. Kyle, who wrecked trucks. Kyle, who had judgments against him. Kyle, who lay on the couch while I worked 60-hour weeks. They loved him for existing. They loved me for providing. I felt a profound, deep shame. Shame that I had been so blind. Shame that I had let it go on this long. Shame that I had needed a $55,000 betrayal to see what had been obvious since I was 10 years old. But as the tears dried, the shame began to harden. It cooled into something sharp and useful. I stood up. I washed my face. I looked in the mirror. I am not an asset. I told my reflection, I am a person, and I am done paying. I forwarded the email to Dana. Do not reply. She texted back. This email is evidence of consciousness of guilt. They are admitting the original signature was not valid by asking you to sign legally this time. I am not signing. I replied, Good. We are moving forward with the formal complaint to the State Attorney General and the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. I am drafting the civil suit for declaratory judgment to sever you from the debt. I stared at the words. Civil suit, Attorney General. I was about to become the villain. I knew the script. My family would tell everyone, the neighbors, the extended family, the church, that I was vindictive, that I was wealthy and cruel, that I had turned on them over a little money. I had to accept that role. I had to be okay with being the bad guy in their story, so I could be the protagonist in mine. But the story wasn't done twisting. The next day, Dana called me into her office. She looked grave. We found something else, she said. I sat down. What? Did they refinance the house again? No, Dana said. We did a comprehensive search of public records and UCC filings. Uniform Commercial Code. It is a registry for liens on personal property. And we found a filing from a company called Quarryline Capital. Dana said. She slid a document across the desk. It was a financing statement. Debtor. Kyle Patterson. Collateral. Heavy-duty truck racks, toolboxes, auxiliary fuel tank, secured party, Quarryline Capital. Amount, $4,200. He bought accessories. I said, he took out another loan for toolboxes? Yes, Dana said, but look at the application data Quarryline provided when we queried the hit. She turned the page. It was a digital application. Primary applicant, Kyle Patterson. Reference 1, Mark Patterson. Reference 2, Sarah Patterson. That is just a reference. I said, that doesn't make me liable. Look at the emergency contact section. Dana said. I looked. Emergency contact, Sarah Patterson. Relationship, sister. Phone, my number SNXXX-XX-6789. My social security number. It was partially redacted, but the last 4 digits were visible, and they were mine. He gave them my social. I whispered. He did not just give it to them, Dana said. We spoke to the compliance officer at Quarryline. They recorded the call during the application process. Kyle told them that you were a silent partner in the business and that you authorized the use of your credit information if they needed to verify backup liquidity. He gave them my social security number to a stranger on the phone to get toolboxes for a truck he didn't own, for a job he hadn't started. Dana leaned forward. This is what I mean by fingerprints. Sarah, they have been using your identity like a communal checking account. It wasn't just the truck. It was the accessories. It was the credit monitoring. Every time they hit a wall, they used your data to build a door. I felt sick. It was the casualness of it. It wasn't a grand heist. It was a series of small, lazy thefts. They stole my name the way someone steals a pen from a bank counter. Because it was there. Because it was useful. Is this loan in default, too? I asked. Not yet, Dana said. It is only 2 weeks old. But since the truck is wrecked, he is not going to be working. He will not pay this. And since they have your social linked as a partner, Quarry Line will come looking for you. I stood up. I walked to the window. I need to end this. I said, we are filing the papers. Sarah, it is ending. No. I said, I need to end it with them. I need to tell them. Sarah, Dana warned, do not go over there alone. It is volatile. I'm not going alone. I said, and I'm not going to their house. I turned back to her. I want to host a meeting. Here, in your conference room. Here? Dana asked. Yes, on neutral ground, with witnesses. I want you there. Do you have a paralegal or someone who can sit in? Yes. We have a retired court reporter who does transcription for us. Good. I want her there. I want a record. I am going to invite them. I said, I am going to tell them that if they want to discuss the compromise, they have to meet me here. Dana looked at me. She assessed me. She saw that I wasn't doing this out of emotion. I was doing this out of a need for closure. Okay, she said, but we set the rules. We control the room. If they shout, we end it. If they threaten you, we call the police. We control the room. I repeated. I sent the invitation via email. I did not text. I did not call. Mom, Dad, Kyle. I received your email regarding the proposed compromise. I am willing to discuss the future of this situation, but only in a structured setting. I will not come to the house. We will meet at the offices of Mercer Hale Legal Clinic on Friday at 10 a.m. My attorney will be present. A neutral third party will be recording the minutes. If you want a path forward, you will be there. If you do not show up, my attorney files the criminal complaint and the civil suit at noon. Sarah. The response came 10 minutes later. We will be there. We are glad you are finally being reasonable. I laughed. It was a dark, dry sound. Reasonable. They thought I was folding. They thought the venue was just a formality, a way for me to save face before I signed the check. They thought they were coming to accept my surrender. They had no idea they were walking into an arraignment. Friday morning was gray and rainy. I arrived at the office an hour early. I dressed like I was going to court. A dark navy suit, hair pulled back tight, armor. Dana had set up the conference room. It was a long table. She sat at the head. I sat on her right, the court reporter. A woman named Mrs. Higgins, who looked like a kindly grandmother but typed like a machine gun, sat in the corner. We laid out the exhibits. Exhibit A, the dealership co-buyer form with the forged signature. Exhibit B, my badge access logs from work. Exhibit C, the toll violation photo. Exhibit D, the abandoned loan application screenshot. Exhibit E, the Quarry Line financing statement with my SSN. Exhibit F, the welcome letter from Identity Shield. We placed them face down in a neat stack. At 9:55, the buzzer rang. They walked in. My father led the way. He was wearing a suit that was slightly too tight, his face flushed. My mother followed, wearing a beige cardigan, clutching her purse like a shield. Kyle came last. He looked sullen, wearing a hoodie and jeans, eyes darting around the room like a trapped animal. They stopped when they saw the setup, the court reporter, the stacks of paper, Dana in her glasses. This seems excessive. Sarah, my father said, trying for a jovial tone but failing. "We are just family having a chat. Please take a seat," Dana said. Her voice was not warm. It was the voice of the law. They sat on the opposite side of the table. The distance between us was only 4 feet, but it felt like a canyon. I did not say hello. I did not smile. "Thank you for coming," I said. I folded my hands on the table. "You asked for a compromise. You asked me to sign the papers to validate the fraud you committed. We didn't call it fraud," my mother snapped. "We called it a mistake. I picked up Exhibit A. I flipped it over. This is a co-buyer consent form." I said, "It is signed with my name." I did not sign it. I flipped over Exhibit B. "This is my work log. It proves I was 20 miles away when this signature was created." My father shifted in his seat. "We know all this. Sarah, that is why we are here. To fix the paperwork error. It is not an error." "Dad," I said, "it is a crime." I flipped over Exhibit C, the toll violation. "You registered the truck in my name." I said, "You made me the legal owner of a $55,000 liability without my consent." I flipped over Exhibit F. "You signed me up for credit monitoring using Dad's email so you could hide the alerts from me. That proves intent. You knew what you were doing was wrong, and you took steps to conceal it." Kyle looked at the table. He wouldn't meet my eyes. And then, I said, "I found this." I flipped over Exhibit E, the quarry line document. "You gave my social security number to a stranger to buy toolboxes." "Kyle, you listed me as a partner." Kyle's head snapped up. I didn't think you would find that. I found everything." I said. My father slammed his hand on the table. "Enough," he shouted. Mrs. Higgins didn't flinch. She just kept typing. "Enough of what, Dad?" I asked. "Enough of this trial. You are treating us like criminals. We are your parents. We fed you. We clothed you. We paid for your dance lessons. And now, because of a few signatures, you are trying to destroy us?" "I am not destroying you." I said, "You destroyed yourselves. You bet the house on a lie." I looked at the refinance documents. I hadn't even shown them yet. "I know about Briarcrest, Dad. I know you forged my witness signature on the deed of trust. I know you stripped the equity to pay off Kyle's old judgments." The color drained from his face. He slumped back in his chair. "You know," he whispered, "I know everything." My mother started to cry. It was a low, keening sound. "We were going to pay it back." She sobbed. "We just needed time. Why can you not give us time?" "Because you stole my time." I said, "You stole my name." I took a deep breath. I looked at Dana. She nodded. "Here is the situation." I said, "I am not signing the restructuring papers. I am not validating the debt." "Then we lose the truck," Kyle said. "They will repo it." "Yes," I said, "they will. And because I have proven fraud, they will not come after me for the balance. They will come after you." "And the house?" my father asked. His voice was hoarse. "If the refinance is exposed as fraudulent..." Dana started. I cut her off. "I am offering you one path," I said. They looked at me. Hope flared in their eyes. They thought I was going to write a check. "Option 1, I said. "I leave this room and Dana files the criminal complaint. The police arrest you for forgery and identity theft. The bank forecloses on the house immediately because of the fraud clause. You go to jail. Option 2, I continued. "You sign a full admission of guilt right now, a sworn affidavit stating that you, and only you, were responsible for the loans. You agree to cooperate fully with Irongate and Quarryline to remove my name from every single document. You return every piece of mail you have intercepted, and what?" my mother asked. "And you never ask me for $1 again." I said, "You never ask for a cosign. You never ask for a loan. If you do, I file the criminal charges immediately. I will hold the affidavit in escrow. It is your permanent probation." My father looked at the affidavit Dana had placed in front of him. "If we sign this," he said, "does the bank see it?" "Only the fraud department." Dana said, "To clear Sarah's name, we will not press for criminal charges if you cooperate, but the banks might sue you civilly. They will sue us anyway." my father muttered. He picked up the pen. His hand was shaking. Mark, do not, my mother said. If you sign that, you are admitting it. We did it. Diane, he shouted. He looked at her, his eyes wild. We did it. She has the proof. Look at the table. She has us cold. He looked at me. There was no love in his eyes, only defeat, and a strange, cold respect, the respect one gives to an enemy who has won. He signed. He slid the paper to Kyle. Sign it, he said. Kyle looked at me. Sarah, please, I need the truck. The truck is gone. Kyle, sign the paper. Kyle signed. He was crying, sniffling like a child. My mother refused. She crossed her arms. I will not sign. I will not say I am a criminal. You don't have to. Dana said, 2 signatures are enough to establish the conspiracy. I took the affidavit. I checked the signatures. It is done. I said, I stood up. My father stood up too. He looked smaller than I had ever seen him. Are you happy? He asked. You won. You beat your family. I didn't win. Dad, I said, I just stopped losing. I walked to the door. Where are you going? Kyle asked. I am going to work. I said, I have a closing in 2 weeks, and I need to make sure my credit is clean. I walked out of the conference room. I walked past the receptionist. I walked out into the rain. I didn't look back. I didn't feel triumph. I felt exhausted. I felt hollow. But as the cool rain hit my face, I realized something else. The silence in my head wasn't heavy anymore. It was just quiet. And for the first time in 33 years, the bill was paid in full. The conference room at Mercer Hale was designed to intimidate. It was not the plush, carpeted intimidation of a high-rise corporate firm. It was the sterile, fluorescent intimidation of a place where serious problems were dissected. The table was long, the chairs were stiff, and the air conditioner hummed with a low mechanical drone that covered the silence but did not fill it. I arrived 30 minutes early to set the stage. This was not a family gathering. This was a deposition in everything but name. Dana Mercer stood at the head of the table, arranging files with the precision of a surgeon laying out scalpels. In the corner sat Mrs. Higgins, a retired paralegal Dana often used for transcription. She was a neutral witness, a gray-haired woman with kind eyes and fingers that could type 200 words a minute. Her presence was my insurance policy. My father would scream at me. He would scream at Dana. But he would not scream in front of a sweet old grandmother he didn't know. We are ready, Dana said, placing a heavy manila envelope next to her notepad. Remember, Sarah, you do not have to argue. You just have to present. Let the paper do the talking. I nodded. I sat in the chair to Dana's right. I folded my hands on the table. My heart was beating a slow, heavy rhythm against my ribs. But my hands were steady. I had spent 33 years reacting to my family's chaos. Today, for the first time, I was the one setting the tempo. They arrived at 10 o'clock exactly. My father walked in first. He was wearing his navy suit, the one he wore to weddings and funerals, but it looked tight across the shoulders, as if he were holding his breath. My mother followed, clutching her purse with both hands, her eyes red-rimmed and darting around the room. Kyle brought up the rear. He looked smaller than I remembered, slouching in a hoodie, refusing to make eye contact with anyone. They stopped when they saw Mrs. Higgins. Who is this? My father asked, his voice sharp. Mrs. Higgins is recording the minutes of this meeting, Dana said smoothly. Please, take a seat. My father hesitated, then pulled out a chair for my mother. They sat on the opposite side of the table. The distance between us was only 4 feet of mahogany, but it felt like an ocean. I am glad we are doing this, my father said, adjusting his tie. He tried to smile, that familiar salesman smile that usually disarmed people, getting everything out in the open, family unity. That is the goal here. Right. Sarah? I looked at him. I didn't return the smile. The goal is the truth. Dad, I said. I reached for the stack of files in front of me. I had prepared them as exhibits, labeled and sorted. I want to walk through the timeline, I said, and I want you to listen without interrupting. I slid the first paper across the table. Exhibit A. The email. This is the email sent to you. Dad, from Westbrook Motor Plaza on October 14th. I said, it confirms that the digital signing session for the truck loan was initiated. The email address used to receive the secure link was yours, not mine. My father glanced at the paper but didn't pick it up. They probably just used the primary contact on file. He said dismissively, it is a default setting. Sarah, I slid the next paper. Exhibit B. The signature. This is the co-buyer consent form that was signed during that session. I continued. My mother looked at the signature. She flinched. It looks like your signature. Sarah, she said softly. It resembles my signature. I corrected. But the spacing is wrong. And the stroke pressure is digital. But that is subjective. This is not. I slid the third paper. Exhibit C. The badge log. This is the security log from my office building. I said. On October 14th, from 1 o'clock to 5 o'clock in the afternoon, I was inside the compliance auditorium for mandatory training. My badge swiped in at 1:15. It swiped out at 5:10. I pointed to the timestamp on the loan document. The loan was signed at 3:45. I said, the room went quiet. Mrs. Higgins' typing was the only sound, a soft clack, clack, clack that sounded like a clock ticking down. My father let out a short, incredulous laugh. Sarah, come on. You probably stepped out for a coffee. You probably did it on your phone in the hallway and just forgot. You are busy. You forget things. Remember when you forgot your aunt's anniversary last year? I stared at him. He was doing it. He was rewriting reality in real time. He was looking at a physical impossibility and asking me to doubt my own existence. Dad, I said, my voice ice cold. We leave our phones in lockers during compliance training. It is a secure environment. I physically could not have signed this. I slid the next paper. Exhibit D. The toll violation. This is a photo of the truck on the tollway. I said, the violation was mailed to me, because the truck is registered to me, not co-signed. Registered. My father waved his hand. A clerical error by the DMV, he shouted. We told you that. The clerk checked the wrong box. And the mail? I asked. I slid the delinquency notice across the table. The notice from Irongate Auto Finance sent to a P.O. box in Briar Glen that I do not own? Was that a clerical error too? Or was that a deliberate attempt to hide the fact that the loan was unpaid? My father's face turned a mottled red. We were handling it, he roared, slamming his hand on the table. We opened the box to manage the paperwork so you wouldn't be bothered. We were trying to protect you from the stress. Protect me? I asked. Or blind me? I slid the final paper, the heavy one, Exhibit E, the accident report, and commercial use clause. Kyle crashed the truck into a storage facility. I said, the damage is estimated at over $100,000. The insurance company is denying the claim because the truck was being used for commercial hauling on a personal policy. I looked at Kyle. He was staring at the table, picking at a loose thread on his hoodie. And since I am the registered owner, I said, they are going to sue me. My mother made a small, choking sound. It won't come to that. My father said quickly, we are talking to the bank. We are going to refinance. We will pay it off. With what money? Dad? I asked. The money from the Briarcrest refinance? The air left the room. My father froze. His eyes locked onto mine. He looked like a man who had just stepped off a ledge and realized there was no net. You know about Briarcrest? He whispered. I pulled out one more document. I hadn't put this one in the stack. I had kept it in my folder. I know you forged my witness signature on the deed of trust. I said, I know you stripped the equity out of the house to pay off Kyle's old judgments. And I know you are underwater. I looked at Dana. She took over. Mr. Patterson, Dana said, her voice calm and terrifyingly professional. We have evidence of forgery, identity theft, mail fraud, and bank fraud. We have the IP addresses. We have the timestamps. We have the testimony from the dealership staff who have already admitted that you coordinated the signing without Sarah present. My father looked at Dana, then at me. He looked trapped. Sarah, he said, his voice shaking, you cannot use this against us. This is family business. It is federal crime, Dana said. And then the silence broke. But it didn't break from my father. It broke from Kyle. Stop it, Kyle yelled. He stood up, his chair scraping violently against the floor. Just stop lying. Dad, it is over. She knows. Kyle, sit down, my father hissed. No. Kyle looked at me. He was crying. Tears were streaming down his face, mixing with the stubble on his cheeks. They made me do it. Sarah, he sobbed. I told them you said no. I told them I didn't want to trick you. But Dad said it was the only way. You little traitor. My father snarled. Tell her, Kyle screamed at him. Tell her why. It wasn't just for the truck. Kyle turned to me. They were going to lose the house. Sarah, the first mortgage was 3 months behind. The refinance with Briarcrest. They needed to clear my old judgments to qualify for it. But they needed more income to show the bank that the household was stable. He wiped his nose with his sleeve. They wanted your name on the truck, so they could show the bank that I had a commercial asset. They thought if I looked like a legitimate business. The bank would give them the loan to save the house. It was all a game. Sarah, I was just the prop, and you were the co-signer. I sat there, stunned. It was worse than I thought. It wasn't just greed. It was a Ponzi scheme. They were using my credit to prop up a house of cards that had been falling for years. They told me to make you responsible, Kyle whispered, sinking back into his chair. They said you could handle it. They said you have so much money it wouldn't even matter to you. They said we just needed to force the bank to listen, and using your name was the only way. My mother stood up then. She wasn't crying. She was shaking with rage. She pointed a finger at me. Are you happy now? She screamed. You have humiliated your brother. You have cornered your father. You sit there in your expensive suit with your high-priced lawyer, judging us. Mom, you are ungrateful, she shouted, her voice cracking. We gave you everything. We sacrificed everything so you could go to school, so you could get that job. And now, when we need help, when we are drowning, you call the police? You call a lawyer? We didn't steal from you, she insisted, her eyes wide and wild. We borrowed. We were going to pay it back. She leaned over the table, her face inches from mine. We only needed your name for a little while. The sentence hung in the air. We only needed your name for a little while. Dana wrote something down on her notepad. She didn't look up. Mrs. Patterson, Dana said quietly. Thank you. You just confirmed intent. Borrowing something without permission is theft. Using someone's identity for a little while without their consent is fraud. You have just admitted to the core charge on the record. My mother stopped. She looked at Mrs. Higgins, who was typing furiously. She looked at Dana. She realized what she had done. She collapsed back into her chair. Covering her face with her hands, Dana stood up. We have arrived at the decision point, she said. She walked to the whiteboard on the wall. She uncapped a marker. She drew a line down the middle. Path 1, she said. Sarah pursues her legal remedies. We file the criminal complaint for identity theft and forgery. We file a civil suit for damages. We send the evidence of the Briarcrest forgery to the mortgage lender, which will trigger an immediate foreclosure and likely federal charges for bank fraud. She looked at my parents. You will go to prison. You will lose the house. You will have permanent felony records. She moved to the other side of the board. Path 2, she said. Cooperation. My father looked up. His eyes were dead. What does that mean? He asked. It means you sign a sworn affidavit today, admitting full responsibility for the truck loan and the accessory loan. Dana said, you admit that Sarah had no knowledge of these transactions. You agree to cooperate with the dealership and the lender to unwind the deal and remove Sarah's name from the title and the debt. And the house? My father asked. We do not report the Briarcrest forgery to the lender, Dana said. But Sarah keeps the evidence. If you ever attempt to use her identity again, or if you harass her, or if you fail to make the payments on the truck debt that will now be solely yours. She releases the evidence. Dana put the cap back on the marker. It is a suspended sentence. Mr. Patterson, you get to stay out of jail, but you lose your control over Sarah. Forever. My father looked at the board. He looked at Kyle, who was still weeping. He looked at my mother, who was staring at the table. Then he looked at me. You would really put us in jail? He asked. His voice was quiet. There was no bluster left. Just curiosity. You would really send your own mother to prison? I looked at him. I thought about the toll violation. I thought about the welcome letter from the credit monitoring service. I thought about the years of being the fixer, the one who paid for the mistakes, the one who was loved only when the check cleared. I didn't do this. Dad, I said, you did. You committed the crimes. I am just the one deciding whether to call the cops. I took a deep breath. I choose myself. Dad. I slid a piece of paper across the table. It wasn't a legal document. It was a list I had written myself. These are my terms. I said, no financial entanglements. You will never ask me for money again. Not for a loan. Not for a cosign. Not for a gift. No contact. You will not call me. You will not text me. You will communicate with me only via email. And only regarding the resolution of this debt. Return of documents. You will give me every copy of my birth certificate, social security card, and passport that you have in your possession. Today, my mother looked up. Sarah, please, no contact. You are our daughter. I was an asset. Mom, I said, now I am a liability. You don't keep liabilities on the books. And one more thing. I said, I looked at Kyle. You are going to get a job, a real job, not a contractor gig with a $55,000 truck. You are going to work, and you are going to pay for the damage to the storage unit. If you miss a payment, and they come after me, I will trigger the criminal complaint. Kyle nodded. He didn't argue. He looked relieved. For the first time in his life, someone was telling him exactly what the consequences were, and there was no safety net to catch him. Dana placed the affidavit in front of my father. Sign it, she said. My father picked up the pen. He held it for a long time. He looked at the paper. It was a confession. It was the end of his authority. Then, the old anger flared one last time. He stood up. He threw the pen across the table. It hit the wall with a sharp crack. I will not sign this, he spat. Mark, my mother cried. I will not let my own daughter blackmail me, he shouted. He pointed a shaking finger at me. You think you are so smart. You think you have won. But if you do this, if you humiliate us like this, I will tell everyone. He leaned over the table, his face twisted into a sneer. I will tell the whole family what kind of daughter you are. I will tell them you abandoned us. I will tell them you are greedy and vicious. I will make sure no one in this town speaks to you again. I sat there. I watched him. He was threatening me with the only leverage he had left. His approval. He thought I was still the little girl who was afraid of the silence. He thought I was still the woman who would pay $55,000 just to be invited to Thanksgiving. But I wasn't that woman anymore. That woman had died in the produce aisle of the grocery store. I reached into my bag. I pulled out a thick, white envelope. It was already stamped. It was addressed to the Illinois Attorney General. Consumer Fraud Bureau. I slid it across the table. It stopped right in front of him. Go ahead. Dad, I said. My voice didn't shake. It was steady. It was final. Tell everyone. Tell the neighbors. Tell the church. Tell the family. I pointed to the envelope. But if you walk out of this room without signing that paper, I dropped this in the mailbox on my way home. I looked him dead in the eye. So, you can tell them your version of the story, and I will tell a jury mine. The room went absolutely silent. The air conditioner hummed. Mrs. Higgins stopped typing. My father looked at the envelope. He looked at the address. He knew what was inside. It was the end of his life as he knew it. He looked at me, searching for a crack, searching for the daughter who always folded. He found only a wall. He slowly sat down. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his own pen. He pulled the affidavit toward him. He signed. He slid it to my mother. She signed, weeping softly. He slid it to Kyle. Kyle signed. Dana took the document. She checked the signatures. She handed it to Mrs. Higgins to notarize. "It is done," Dana said. My father stood up. He looked old. He looked defeated. "Come on, Diane," he said. "Come on, Kyle." They walked to the door. My mother stopped. She looked back at me. "Sarah," she whispered. I didn't look at her. I looked at the affidavit. "Goodbye." "Mom," I said. They left. The door clicked shut. I sat there for a long time. I listened to the silence. It wasn't lonely. It was clean. It was the sound of a balance sheet finally zeroing out. I looked at Dana. "Did we win?" I asked. Dana smiled. It was a soft, genuine smile. "You got your name back. Sarah," she said, "you got your life back." I stood up. I walked to the window and looked out at the rain washing the city streets. I had lost my family. I knew that. The holidays would be empty. The phone would not ring. There would be no more lemon meringue pies. But I also knew that I would never again wake up in the middle of the night, terrified of a debt I didn't owe. I would never again look at my bank account and wonder if it was safe. I was an orphan by choice. And for the first time in my life, I could afford it. I walked out of the office and into the rain. I didn't open my umbrella. I let the water hit my face. It felt like a baptism. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I hope Sarah's journey of reclaiming her identity and standing her ground resonated with you. It is never easy to sever ties with family, but sometimes the price of admission is just too high. I would love to know where you are listening from today. Please drop your city or country in the comments below. It is always amazing to see how far these stories travel. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more tales of justice, boundaries, and reclaiming power, please make sure to subscribe to Revenge Stories. And finally, I want to hear your thoughts. Did Sarah do the right thing by forcing her parents to sign? Or was the nuclear option too harsh? Let me know in the comments in English. I read every single one. Until next time, stay safe and protect your peace.